Hey, what's up? This is Gary A. Swaby, and you're now listening to or watching the Snowfall Aftermath. And this week we will be recapping Snowfall Season 5, Episode 7. And the title of the episode is Lying in a Hammock. And I'm here with Mr. Richard Bailey Jr. How are you doing, Richard?
Doing good, Gary. What's up, listeners and viewers?
What's up, indeed? And yeah, this is a very interesting episode that came on today. The last few have been pretty interesting. You know, the Iliad Part 1 and 2 were particularly interesting, but this one, it kind of opens up a lot of dialogue, a lot of questions. And I'm seeing like many new theories come from the community now. So I can't
hmm
wait to dive into some of these topics, that we're going to be discussing today. But the way this is going to be structured is we're going to do takeaways first, in which both me and Richard just kind of highlight the things that stood out to us from the episode, and then we'll move on to the questions and discussion segment where we kind of have more of a back and forth about the different theories and different plot points that arose from this episode. So yeah, before we get to that, I just want to give people a reminder to, please like, leave a comment and subscribe to the channel. If you do enjoy, the banter and dialogue that we have about this TV show, definitely do, drop your comments below because we love to hear from the community. We love to hear other theories and thoughts, about Snowfall. So please do that, and then also hit the like button because that is very important also. And I want to give a big thanks to those who have been doing so because I noticed that more people are commenting and liking and stuff. So big thanks to those who do support. But yeah, so let's get into our takeaways right now. And this week we are going to hear from Mr. Richard Bailey Jr. first. So take it away when you're ready, Richard.
All right. Well, first and foremost, let me start by saying I thought this was once again another very good episode of Snowfall. As Gary mentioned, there's a lot of talking points that you are going to be thinking about and discussing after you watch this episode. So I'm going to get into a few takeaways I have. It's three really main takeaways, but before I get to that, the name of the episode was titled "Lying in a Hammock." And when I looked up that title, that actually is based on a poem by James Wright. And the poem basically is about it's basically something of a meaning to suggest about it. Someone feels as though they've wasted their life, but then they take another view at their surroundings, and then they make a decision to make some changes to make a situation better. And that essentially is what we saw happen to Jerome's character in this episode. So, the first takeaway I want to get into this episode mainly was about the search for peaches is one of the main points. Um, Jerome, obviously, after last week, he was one of the main people talking about he didn't believe that peaches would do anything to harm the group, so he was going to take it upon himself to go out and start looking for peaches. Now, I know we said on this show multiple times, based on how they were setting things up, it looked as though Peaches possibly had HIV because every time we saw the character, he made mention to being sick, not really feeling well. Um, so as the episode progressed, and they had a scene where Jerome goes to a clinic, eventually, he talks to a doctor. He's trying to find out where Peaches is at. Unfortunately, he isn't able to find Peaches there, but he does run into one of his old friends, Oakley, who is another guy who also served. Um, and as he is there, basically he participates in a class where he's listening to people talking about things that they've experienced. So what I think is interesting is that, we know that Jerome's character, as well as several people, have gone through PTSD in one way or another. And especially when you saw last week when Jerome was beating the hell out of that guy, and I saw a whole bunch of memes and gifs of that beatdown, which I thought was very entertaining. But really, it's about getting your mental health in order. And basically, when you feel as though you have some issues, you have to express them. to somebody. Otherwise, they're just going to bottle up, which I think is very interesting timing with this episode, considering something else that happened this week that has been all over the news. But I'm not going to get into that because we're not here to talk about that. But yes, we did see Jerome had these thoughts. And as he's going about looking for Peaches towards the end of the episode, eventually, Oakley's friend Charles, he basically comes in. He basically finds out where he's at, and this is pretty much a crack house, I guess you want to say, or a drug house. He walks in there and he sees a guy shooting up, and it's kind of like he has this reflective thought when they tell him, "Oh yes, Peaches is a junkie. He's been doing drugs. He comes to this place all the time. So he took your money and he possibly went overseas, somewhere to the Philippines, Thailand, etc." Now, I will say this: I did have a bit of a critique with this because D. Ray Davis, and I'm his agent, by the way. D. Ray Davis, he's an excellent comedian. He's been playing this character Peaches for the last several seasons. So I know that, I believe when they were shooting this particular season, he had a lot of opportunities to do a lot of, to go on the road and do a lot of shows. So maybe that's why he hasn't been on the show quite as often. I will say, however, if this was their attempt to write him out of the show completely, I'm a little disappointed in that because I feel as though you've gotten to know the character at least for a little bit of time. It would have been great for him to get a better exit, because I think about last season when Franklin had that bodyguard that came in and was there for a brief period of time, but he made it very clear to Franklin, I don't like the idea of killing my own people and all this gang activity stuff. I served in the military, so on and so forth. I don't like doing any of this, so I have to step away. I can't do this job anymore. I feel like Peaches is a character that we've known a lot longer, so I would have liked to have gotten the proper exit. Now, obviously, could he still show up this season? I have no idea. I don't think so, because the writing would suggest that they just know he's behind all of this, and therefore he's the one that took the money and ran and ratted everybody out in terms of where our location, where we was at on that particular day. So I kind of feel like jumping to this conclusion without hearing his side of what's happening, it is a little unfortunate. I know people have said, obviously, when Rob got killed and he was there and you saw his reaction, maybe he was scared that was going to happen to him, and that's why he bailed. That totally makes sense. All I'm saying is that I would have liked to get a definitive ending because it feels as though it was open-ended, whereas they could potentially bring him back in the future, or or he's pretty much, that's it for him. And I have no idea if they're going to go down that path. But I will say I don't have a problem with him being the junkie, unfortunately. I do think that when they talk about the health, and then they talk about the whole conversation that Parissa had with Teddy about AIDS, about HIV, I think that was intentional, and I think that was in there that was in there, in my opinion, to suggest that this is what happened with Peaches. But we don't know for sure if he had HIV. We know that he was shooting up with them needles, and obviously it's a higher possibility that you can get it if you are using those needles, in addition to having unprotected sex. So maybe we'll get an answer in the future, but for now, I just have to say, obviously this whole thing was to help Jerome come to the realization that he needs to get back to helping his people. I find that to be very ironic because selling the drugs, the stuff that him and Franklin and everybody else did, that destroyed the community. So for them to feel a need now to come back and help the community, I mean, it's a very good and interesting dialogue to have, because I'm pretty sure a lot of people that do this stuff, when you see how it impacts your people after a period of time, you want to try to take back your actions. So I'm curious to see if that's what happens with Jerome, if he has an opportunity to do that. But we'll see. We'll probably get into that a little bit later. So 2 other quick takeaways I want to mention. Kane, obviously, this episode, we wanted to see how Franklin was going to respond, because at the end of the last episode, it was very clear to me, at least, that Kane was not trying to do any type of negotiating. He wants revenge for what happened to his brother Kevin. So when the episode starts and Franklin and Leon are talking to Louie and Jerome, and they have this plan where, you know, Leon could basically talk to Kane and basically convince him, hey, I can help you and your family out, and I can get you involved in this as well, just so that things end peacefully and it doesn't have to go to a war. I understand that logic, but I think that it's very unrealistic that Kane is going to agree to any of that, because by the end of the episode, for now, he does agree, right? They say he does agree, and then they decide to cut him in and have him, one of his friends, selling product, so he gets a cut of that. Okay, that's fine. But the thing about it, and this is, like I say, one of the best things about this episode, in my opinion, is that Louie and Jerome had their own plan, and they have already decided that they were going to approach Buckley about killing him. That's exactly what Louie did. And at the end of this episode, even though they've already spoken to Franklin, Louie still decides to tell Buckley, "No, I still want him dead. So I'll pay you the money. Just do it." This is interesting and it's very consistent, because we know last season, you know, Louie and Jerome, they were hoping that Franklin was going to deal with the situation with Scully. And he was very, you know, he took his time trying to resolve that situation. And as a result of that, you know, Louie almost lost her life. So she and Jerome took it upon themselves to fix that relationship. So I totally understand why they don't trust Franklin to fix things with Kane, and why they just want to take him out altogether. But that is definitely going to have consequences. And I think the dangerous thing about what Louie is doing, because she's gotten greedy now, so on and so forth, the thing about it is that we already know, the way it looks like to me is that either Leon or Jerome are not going to survive by the end of this season. I think that's very clear now, because number one, Jerome is on this path now where he wants to better his people and do a lot of things to upbuild the community. That's fine. And then Leon wants to do the exact same thing within his community. But the problem is that with Louie deciding to take this different venture of taking out Kane, this goes completely against what the agreement was that Franklin and Leon have right now with Kane. And also, from Franklin's point of view, as Kane mentioned in this episode, I'm surprised that Franklin isn't the one that wants to have a discussion with me and try to work this out. Instead, he sends his boy Leon there. We know from last season, after all the stuff that Leon went through, he wanted out, and Franklin told him, "No, I need you to stay involved in this because I paid a high price to keep you involved in this." So as a result of that, I feel like it is setting up either Leon or Jerome are going to get killed by Kane, because we know that the Kane character, this isn't just any type of character that you can introduce on a show, especially when he's related to Kevin. And he has to have some type of revenge that is a lasting impact on Franklin. So why not take out Leon? And I know fans don't want to hear that. It would be very devastating, by the way. But it feels like either Leon or Jerome, one of them characters, is going to get taken out now directly because of this whole thing, this whole beef between Louie and Franklin. So I look forward to seeing how that's going to happen. But it's a very rough situation. Very interesting to see how things are going to pan out, though. And the final takeaway that I have, because I don't want to spend too much time here, because I definitely want to hear what Gary has to say. As far as Franklin in this episode, we know that Jerome is worried about having a miscarriage. She's been a little sick, but she's still very much rushing to try to get this deal done. And very interesting when she has these conversations back and forth with Franklin, when she mentions to Franklin, because it makes it very clear to Franklin that obviously his mom has been talking to her, getting in her ear and warning her about what's happening. But she mentions to Franklin, "Oh yeah, Sissy is out having coffee with a friend." We already know who that friend is. This is the guy Ruben, who clearly has a plan to basically take out everybody involved. Obviously, obviously Sissy wants Teddy gone, but Ruben has bigger plans in mind. So now Franklin is going to be suspicious of what his mom is doing, out talking to some other person he is not aware of. That's number one. Number two, we do see later in this episode when Franklin goes up to meet with Teddy, and you and I already addressed this, that Teddy was going to be very angry because Franklin was behind what happened with this attack. But Teddy finds out, oh, Sissy is back now. That was not part of our deal. So obviously Teddy is concerned that Sissy is back. He's also concerned about Franklin doing this high-profile deal to buy this property because it would directly tie to his business. So this lets you know, but why is he so concerned that Sissy is back? That's why I said, I hope that we get an answer, a definitive answer on what happened to Alton, because now you have 3 episodes left to answer that question. We can sit here and say, oh, Alton is alive, Alton is dead. I feel like there has to be a definitive answer. And it shouldn't just be, oh, yeah, he was dead all along. I think they need to answer that question, even though I think it's very clear to me he is dead. But there's a reason why Teddy is worried that Sissy is back. I'm curious to see how he is going to react to that situation and if he is going to try and get closer. But we do know by the end of this episode, Teddy decides he's going to continue to spy on Franklin. And he has brought someone else in to do that as well. And of course, by the way, Gustavo knows that he actually is trying to spy on Franklin even more now. So I'm curious to see where all this is heading. But overall, I thought it, once again, another great episode. It brought a lot of great talking points to the table. And I look forward to hearing what Gary has to say in his takeaways right now.
Oh, well, I tell you what, I don't think I can top those takeaways that you just gave. So
I don't know about that, man. You should be able to, yes.
No, those were excellent takeaways. And I like some of the theories you have, particularly, the ones about setting up Leon and Jerome to possibly be hurt by Kane. That definitely seems probable after seeing this episode. So yeah, that's an excellent theory. But yeah, I'll go ahead and get into my takeaways, and then we can talk more about some of the other stuff a little later. So yeah, speaking of Jerome, so like this episode, like he was kind of he was like the standout character to me in this episode, because you kind of got to see a transition in the character, like a turning point. And by the end of the episode, he kind of reaches a conclusion of, okay, something needs to change. But I just like that journey that he took throughout this of, he starts off the episode wanting answers, from Peaches, and he wants something to happen to Kane because of, in retaliation to what's happened and everything. Of course, Louie was very upset about it too. And, he really respects his wife and what she wants as well. So, but at the start of the episode, he was totally on board with doing something, to Kane. But then, as we see him kind of seek out Peaches throughout the episode, we see he goes to the doctor's clinic or whatever. And, he, first of all, he sees the doctor, and like the doctor is like, you need to get some therapy, I guess because they both served, in the army or military or whatever. And he recognized immediately that Jerome has some kind of built up trauma or tension within him. And, he suggests that he needs to get therapy and stuff like that. And then, later on you have him, he runs into that other guy, first of all, at the clinic. And, I guess the other guy knows Peaches, and he says that Peaches was around recently. So he's waiting for the guy to, take him to Peaches or whatever. And then he witnesses that group, that therapy group, I guess, that are kind of like talking among each other about their experiences and stuff. And you can see that this is all kind of like touching him, and he's a great actor too, like, great facial expressions and everything. And then, later on, he ends up going to the dope house where they're all taking the stuff. They're all shooting up and everything. And yeah, that's when the revelation comes out that, Peaches, he was actually one of those people. He was hooked on the drugs and everything. And, his whole plan was to just like take the money and get away to, Thailand or wherever it was that they mentioned. So yeah, and that's kind of where it comes out. And I agree with you. I'm gonna come back to the Peaches thing in a minute, but I agree that that was kind of a weak revelation, but I'll get to that in a sec. But yeah, um, they, although that was a weak revelation about Peaches, I think they did a great job of like setting up Jerome's character for the future, or for this turning point that he's going through. So I think they did a great job with that part of it. And then, of course, he goes back to Louis, and he ends up, first of all, he says that, something's got to change. I got to get back to my work. I got to help people in the community and stuff like that. And then he proposes to her. So, it's like he's finally ready to kind of make adjustments in his life, and I guess just sort things out and live more like live with his morals. I guess he wants to go on more of a righteous path, and he wants to like help people in the community and stuff. But the only problem is that he's clearly in too deep at this point. His connection to Franklin, and his indirect connection to Teddy as well through Franklin. And then everyone else in the streets. There's Scully, and then there's this Kane situation. Like they're already in way too deep, so he is going to struggle with now going back to the community and trying to help them out, because it's already gone too far. He's beaten people to a bloody pulp and all this stuff. So all of the things he's been through these past 5 seasons, it's going to come back to him. It's going to come back to haunt him if he tries to then transition and do the community work. And one of the things about The Wire, now I remember this interview, and I'm sorry to kind of divert to The Wire, but this kind of it goes to my point, here in what I'm trying to say. But in The Wire, they killed off Stringer Bell, one of our favorite characters, played by Idris Elba, right? And Ed Burns, no, not Ed Burns, David Simon, the one of the creators of the show, he actually gave us a reason of why they had to do that, because Stringer Bell was all about reform. Like he wanted to reform the drug trade. Like he wanted to, go from this being this kingpin, and then go transition into like a righteous path and build all this like property and development and all that stuff. And he wanted to make it clear that this isn't something that happens a lot. This isn't something that works a lot of the time, because mostly these people get caught, once these things are in motion. And the ones that don't get caught, you probably never hear about it anyway. Like you probably just would never know that, But yeah, he wanted to make it clear in The Wire that you can't reform the drug trade. Like it's just not going to happen. So I feel like this is going to be a wall that Jerome hits eventually as well. Like you can't do all of this stuff that you did and then go back and build the community and stuff like that. So I think he is going to be very tough for Jerome in the like these next few episodes. And I think your theory, Rich, is it definitely sounds probable that something could happen to him, either him or Louis. But yeah, we'll talk more about that later, because there are some more discussions to be had about those two. But yeah, so let's get to Peaches. So the whole Peaches thing, yeah, they fumbled this one. I think if this is what we get, they really fumbled this story, because like it was such a build up. It was such a like the community was, everybody was trying to guess what was going on here, and then they had that very key hint with Parissa that you mentioned, Rich, where she brought up the whole HIV thing, and of course earlier in the season you had Peaches. He was like coughing and sneezing and all that stuff. So yeah, like they just fumbled it. I think like the way it came to an end. It's so abrupt, and I don't know if it's a case of scheduling with D-Ray, but yeah, I feel like they could have just done a better job of this. Like the resolution is just weak. It's empty, and yeah, I don't know. Like it's not satisfying at all. Because after all, like sometimes with these shows, it gets to a point where the community does the marketing for the show, because like sometimes these storylines, like they're built up so well that the community online, there's so much back and forth dialogue and theorizing, that they're kind of doing the marketing for the show. And this is one of those stories, like along with Veronique as well. People were trying to figure out what was going on, with these characters. And yeah, Peaches, like for all that questioning, for all the theorizing about what was going on, I just feel this kind of fell flat. Like it's not satisfying at all. But it's cool that they left it open ended, so that possibly we might actually see the character again, whether it's this season or next season or whatever. So at least there's that. It might not be fully over yet. Like maybe we still will get that resolution. But yeah, now we know for sure that Peaches, he robbed the stash. So he actually did it. So at least we know that, and we know that it was likely because of what he saw happen to Rob in the first episode. So there's that, I guess. And then another resolution in this episode that I think isn't finished is Kane. So we see that Leon, he takes on the responsibility of trying to talk down Kane. And immediately I was laughing when I saw that, like, because that clip came out earlier than the episode. And I was laughing when I saw that, because I was like, really, Leon's gonna like end this beef? Like, I just didn't see it happening. But yeah, I guess they get to a point in the conversation where Leon believes that Kane is going to work with them, to kind of keep things non-violent or whatever. But Rich, you said something key earlier when we were talking about the episode. You said that this beef is really between Kane and Franklin, and it should be resolved between those two characters. And I absolutely agree with that. I think Leon talking to Kane means absolutely nothing. I think that Kane still he could still retaliate at any moment. I think he's still planning. I think he's still plotting, and we already know that Louie has plans too. Because she spent this episode trying to convince Buckley to take out, to basically do a bust on Kane and his crew. So plans are in motion, and I don't see Kane backing down just like that because of Leon, to be honest. Like after everything he did already, like in sending the shooters after all these people, like we're talking, people who are innocent, people who aren't even in the streets, and he sent shooters to go at them. And I know it's because of the pain he feels for his brother, like that he lost and everything. I know that, but I just don't feel like it's going to be resolved that clean, that simply. So I don't think that's over yet. I don't think that's a full resolution. I just think, okay, that problem goes away for maybe an episode, but it's coming back, and yeah, I'll talk more about that later on. But yeah, it's Leon didn't fix anything. I'll just say that. Like in my mind, I don't think he's capable of fixing this situation. So, but yeah, it was cool that he tried, and I was surprised that Franklin had so much faith in this plan as well. He's definitely a bit delusional. And after Teddy put so much pressure on him as well when they met, I'm surprised that he would think that he's handled it already. Like, because now you never know what's going to happen. Like now you should be walking into every situation thinking that anything could happen. Like you should be prepared for anything to pop off at any time. and you shouldn't have that confidence that things are handled now. So yeah, he's a bit delusional at the moment. But yeah, um so yeah, and the whole marriage thing with Jerome. So going back to that quickly, I do want to talk about this a bit more later. But going back to the whole marriage thing, and based on the trailers we've seen, I guess it's safe to assume we're going to see that wedding next week. Um, and I think the main thing in this episode is that I don't think this wedding. I don't think this marriage is going to be as smooth as we think. Now, up to this point, those two characters, they've been like deeply in love. It looks like they're very loyal to each other at the moment. But this episode planted a lot of seeds of doubt in our minds about this, relationship. First of all, you had Buckley being very flirtatious with Louie, and he's kind of trying to plant these seeds as well in her mind of doubting that she wants to be with Jerome, for the rest of her life. Now, I like how they kind of tied the conversation to back to the Kane one, because it was like one moment he was like, you have to think about if this is what you really want, and Louis was like, yeah, this is what I really want. But it was like she was saying that to both things. It was saying like it was as if she was like trying to convince herself that she wants both those things. Like, yes, I do want to marry Jerome, and yes, I do want to deal with this Kane situation. So it was like the way that the conversations, like they kind of crossed over, sort of thing. So I don't know if that was intentional in the writing, but that was that was a very interesting thing to see. Like, because the way Louis delivered the line, it was like she was trying to convince herself that, yes, I want this. So that was very interesting to note. And there's a lot of like a little expressions between her and Jerome in this that makes me think they're not really sure of their current situations. Especially, Jerome, we saw him have his whole transition and everything. And if he does go through with this whole transition and trying to help the community, that is going to directly conflict with what Louis is doing, with the business. So yeah, I think the marriage makes it seem like, yeah, they're finally making this official, and they're going to be a power couple. But I don't think that's the case. I think this is going to be the start of some very, very bad things. So I just can't wait to see it. But yeah, that's pretty much it for my takeaways. But yeah, great talking points from Richard, and I can't wait to get into some of this subject matter. But go ahead, you was going to say something.
Oh no, I was just going to say, yeah, excellent takeaways, Gary, and I like how you made that connection about the wire specifically. Those are very good talking points. So I'm very curious to hear what people have to say about your takeaways.
Yeah, that's one thing I'll always remember about The Wire, because like I actually brought the DVDs, and like there was like interviews at the end of the show, like and yeah, like of course, like when Stringer died, he was such a huge character, and it was like I had to find answers, like why would they do this? Like he was like the best, this was the best story in the show.
Yeah.
But yeah, it made sense though the way he explained it. And I do think that that is a key thing in a lot of these shows that we see. Maybe not so much in the Power universe, because like it's like the drugs just like continue to flow nonstop in that show. But that's more of an entertainment kind of thing. But this show is more grounded in realism, and I just don't think they're going to portray a character that makes that full transition to from being this sort of kingpin type figure to being, like a guy that's helping the community, So
well, you could say that would have potentially happened to Ghost, but but it didn't happen.
Yes, and that's that. There you go. Yeah,
yeah.
That's great that you bring that up. But carry on, you continue.
Oh no, I was just going to say, yeah, because that's a character that was trying to make transitions, but at the very end, no, it did not happen. because Courtney Kemp said no, that's not going to happen. But that's it. That's all I'm going to say about power on this show.
But yeah, that's another great example right there, because Ghost was trying to make that transition too. He was trying to become governor, so he was going to really get a position of power, and then we saw what happened with that. So yeah, it's like whenever people try to make that transition, it doesn't really happen. It doesn't really happen a lot of the time. So. So yeah, I think this is going to be a major turning point for a lot of characters now. Particularly Jerome and Louie. So yeah, and that brings us to the next segment. But before we get there, please do hit the like button. Please do chime in the comments. I can't wait to see what the wonderful people have to say about all of this stuff. And yeah, also check out some of the other content on the channel. We have a lot of reviews going up right now. Atlanta, Sonic, Morbius, Power, Snowfall.
Yep. And then just a quick reminder that Force is not airing this week, so that will return next week. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah. So yeah, we're really going hard right now. So please do show some respect, hit that like button, consider subscribing if you like what you see, and please do drop those comments, because I love those comments. They're like the highlight of my week.
I agree. Same here. I love seeing everybody comment. Yes.
Oh yeah. All right. So yeah, let's get into some questions now. Because we were literally just talking about this, I think it's only right to start here. And it kind of we've seen the trailer as well, so we can kind of branch off and talk about some other things from this topic as well. But do you think that Jerome and Louie are going to have a happy marriage? So that is the question I wanted to ask to you, because we've seen them have a great relationship so far. They've been very loyal to each other. Jerome's always like sticking up for her, helping her, and likewise. So, what do you think is going to happen once they finally do tie the knot?
Well, I think you said it perfectly when you said that clearly they're going on two different paths. What we have seen of Louie this season is that the character has always been a little bit greedy. They hinted of that earlier in the Snowfall series with her trying to get access to that club, which she eventually got. But now that she has elevated this season, the whole go back to the interaction she had with Franklin, and he asked, "So what do you want now, Queen Louie?" So the character is definitely going down this other path here, and I think that with Jerome trying to change himself and to change how he impacts the community, yes, as you said, that is a direct conflict with what she is doing, because she is only concerned about selling the product, making as much money as possible, and not having to answer to anybody, and basically being her own queen pin, which is totally fine. But it creates a conflict, because again, on one hand, you have her selling the product, whereas Jerome is now thinking, I want to try to help somebody who might have already gotten high off this product. I want to try to steer them in a different direction or prevent them from even trying the product. So it creates a conflict for sure. And that's why that conversation they had before he proposed was very interesting, where he said, I'm always going to be here for you. That to me was kind of pretty much already saying, we can go our separate ways, but I'll still support you. Because I thought that's kind of weird that you say that and then you present the ring. So that definitely, what you said, I think is exactly what is going to happen now. They'll go in their separate paths, or we may not even get to see that situation fully play out because of the decisions that Louie made to basically have Buckley go after Kane, and Jerome gets taken out before it even escalates to that point. I mean, I have no idea, but what we do know is that he does have a conversation with Louie in the next episode, because we saw the trailer for episode 8 called Celebration for the Wedding, which he basically tells her, I don't want to have a fight I don't want to get into any fights with people who are a part of my own blood. Basically to suggest that this thing between you and Franklin, you have to come to a resolution. I don't want to be caught in the middle of this, but he's still in the middle of it. So I think, to answer your question, they're going to have a lot of issues still. And I look forward to seeing where that goes, because it definitely is going to get a lot more intense going into next week's episode.
Oh yeah, indeed, indeed. And yeah, you make a great point. Like it really was like he was saying something deeper when he made that comment of like, I'm always gonna be there for you. Because
Mhm.
it's like, why would you even need to say that? It's like, so are you basically saying that, you know, uh you don't want to be part of like, the business no more, the drug business. You want to go do your own thing, but through this marriage you still want to be connected to her, but you're just not going to be with her on the day to day, running the drug game and stuff like that. Like, it seems like that's kind of what he was saying without saying it. And that it just can't work. That definitely will not work because it's a direct conflict. And what we've seen throughout this show is that they do show you the other side of this drug dealer lifestyle. They show you how it ruins the community, how it ruins people.
Mhm.
We have the character Wanda. We see what it did to her. And yeah, like if you're going to be working in the community, that means you're going to be seeing how these drugs affect the community and destroy the community. And how are you going to have a family that's doing this stuff, like a wife and a nephew that's doing this stuff, like that's actually doing the damage, but you're out here trying to help them. Like it just can't work.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's a great point you made, but go ahead.
And I agree with what you said, and I also will add the point that by Jerome making this whole, eventually, if he is to spend less time at the club, this gives Buckley a very clear path, right, to eventually win Louie over, right? Because this guy, as you said, he was flirting with her in this episode. He's already been married. He can tell her marriage did not work for him. So the fact that you have him here and you're asking him to do all these favors, eventually he's going to want something in return. He made it clear already, you need to give me somebody that I can give to my boss. But he also is interested in Louie as well.
Mhm.
So it complicates the situation. And we already know that Jerome does not like Buckley because of that exchange they had a few episodes ago. So that's the situation that I think where Jerome is now trying to be peaceful, whatever, trying to get back to how he was doing things before. If he sees Buckley at that club messing around with Louie, that's when things change. So that's why I said it's not going to be and I kind of find it interesting. Obviously, now we didn't see next week's episode, but I'll be very curious to see if there's a conversation that Sissy has with him in the next episode. Ask Jerome, are you really sure you want to do this? Because nobody talked to him to make sure this is a decision that you want to go through with. So I'm very curious to see what their reaction will be when they find out next week, oh, they are getting married. Are they going to say anything about being against that? Because clearly they're in the photo of the wedding, but I want to know, how do they actually feel about them getting married? So,
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm sure, a lot of onlookers might see it as a dysfunctional kind of situation because
mhm,
of the lifestyle they live, and the fact they were just shot at, at a restaurant, they were having a peaceful moment, well, they were kind of having like a discussion because Veronique wanted to, kind of talk them into getting the investment or whatever, but yeah, it was like it looks like it's a peaceful setting, like a restaurant or whatever. And there could be many times where they're just doing stuff as a couple, as a married couple, but then their lives are at stake. So
mhm.
it's like, how are you going to live this happy husband and wife situation when you're living this dangerous lifestyle that somebody could come gunning for you at any moment. And Jerome has done a great job of like starting beefs recently because he's a person now. So there
Yep.
could be some retaliation for that. So
Oh yeah.
uh,
There probably will be some retaliation after that beatdown. There got to be some retaliation coming to him at some point.
yeah, for real, yeah. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what the response is from the others. And I have a little theory about the wedding and who might be at the wedding, but we'll get to that in a little bit.
Okay.
Um, so we obviously we saw the trailer, and it seems like the wedding is going to play a huge part. in this next episode. I mean, this might be like the Game of Thrones red wedding, you know. Maybe half the cast gets taken out or something.
They have referenced Game of Thrones quite a times when they have interviews what their show was like. So I would not be surprised if something very over the top violent happens at their wedding.
Oh, well, it definitely looks like it. It definitely looks like something like that's going to happen. So we see, you know, in the trailer that Franklin is looking very disturbed throughout this trailer, and he's in his wedding clothes. You know, we see one where he's kind of like falling down in frustration. We see one where he's kind of like fighting. We see one where he's running. So I wanted to ask you, like, what do you think is going on with Franklin? Like, who's he going to be fighting at the funeral, and who, you know, what do you think is a possibility of what could be going down here in these scenes?
Well, this is. Well, I think this is going to be a very interesting situation. Obviously, we know that Franklin, he now has Teddy, you know, putting even more pressure on him. And I believe that in the next episode, he's going to find out that Teddy hired some other guy to now investigate him and bug him and do all this other stuff. I think that is going to be a tipping point for him, because what we do know by looking at the season trailer of Snowfall is that Franklin has a conversation with Teddy, and it is something to the effect of, "I'm going to kill you. You're going to try to kill me." And that trailer is important because in that trailer, Franklin is wearing the exact same suit he had on in this trailer. So I think that conversation is going to happen in the next episode. I'm about 100% certain that's going to happen. But I think it's going to be about him finding out about what's happening with Teddy. I think something will probably happen with Kane again, where they find out that somebody else, that they still have the target on their back, and they have a nasty exchange or something to that effect. And then maybe once again, he approaches Louie to basically try and work something out. Because again, they show in the trailer two other important things. They show he's having a dance with Louie, talking about we can still work together and all this other stuff. And she's saying, no, we can't. But also in that trailer, Louie is having a conversation with Teddy. And she had alluded to that when she had her whole conversation with Franklin before, why can't I just be the one to go talk to Teddy? And that happens. So all of these things, I feel, is going to be Franklin's going to look at that as betrayal. And all this is going to be the catalyst of why he's very disturbed at the wedding. Because I feel like he's going to find out a lot of these things in the next episode. Maybe he'll even find out something about Jerome, unless they're going to wait until episode 9 or 10 to really reveal that bombshell. But I just feel like this episode is going to be a lot of betrayal that Franklin witnesses. And what we do know is that Damson Idris has already said the moment he is most proudest of in his career is this upcoming episode. So I'm very curious to see what exactly that means. But I just feel, a lot of things are going to be revealed to Franklin in this episode that makes him the way he is. And he's going to have to react to certain things. So I look forward to seeing what that actually is.
Oh yeah, me too. Yeah, because I did see that Breakfast Club interview, and he definitely said, this is his most proudest like performance. So I can't wait to see that. And yeah, like one of the theories I had after seeing this is that I thought, Teddy is definitely going to show up at the wedding, as a guest or something.
Yeah.
But in that scene that you mentioned, because I forgot about that, where they're talking, what is Teddy wearing in that scene? Where they're kind of like, where he says, "Oh, you're gonna try to kill me" or whatever. Is Teddy wearing like a tux or anything?
That's a good question. I would have to go back and look at that because I wasn't paying attention to that. I know Franklin's suit. It stood out to me. I was like, yeah, this is a conversation that these guys are clearly having. But yeah, I don't think if Teddy shows up to that wedding, I don't think he's going to be dressed up. He'll probably have the same stuff he normally wears. But I mean, I'm not 100% sure. But that's a very good theory that he could show up at that wedding because, again, now he's very, very paranoid about Franklin. Doesn't trust Franklin. Refers to him as the asset. So I think he definitely will be there 100%. In some capacity. He definitely going to be listening because he got all of the equipment to spy on him now. So we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's likely that he could show up and just cause a lot of tension because we know Louis won't like to have him there, but then they might end up having that conversation of, oh, why
Mm-hmm.
can't I talk to Teddy? You know, why can't I be, you know, the one to deal with him or whatever?
And,
Um,
and and it's very likely that that conversation may even happen before the wedding, and then she tells him to come to the wedding. That
oh,
also is a possibility.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. Yeah, so and we know now that, and this, I guess, this kind of brings me to the next question. But we now know that after seeing, you know, Teddy talk to this other guy, he is planning something now. And it seems like it involves some sort of transaction, like of funds, like funds being sent from one place to another or something of that nature. So,
Mm-hmm.
what do you think is up with that? Like, what is Teddy planning there? Is he trying to take everything away from Franklin and maybe have somebody else replace him, or what do you think could be going on here?
Well, we know, as Teddy said in the past seasons, everybody is replaceable. So I kind of feel like I really feel like he will hold a grudge against Franklin because of what happened in the previous episode with him getting shot up and all this other stuff. I kind of feel like that really, because he almost lost his life, he's going to definitely try to do as much as he can to make Franklin feel that. And then, of course, knowing that Franklin's own people, when Franklin said, "Oh yeah, Peaches was behind all of this," that is going to make him that wasn't a good thing to say because now it places even more doubt in Franklin that he is in control of anything, including his own people. So I feel as though yes, he definitely wants access to Franklin's money. He wants to take everything from him, the money, the make sure that he's actually doing what he's supposed to be doing, and watching him very, very closely. But I'm also curious to see what that conversation with Louie, how that actually is going to go down. Because we already know that I'm pretty sure that he could be looking at Louie as the person that can replace Franklin. And therefore, that will reinforce it. And this is how Franklin's going to look at it also. Why would Louie go behind my back to talk to Teddy? What is going on with all of this? So I kind of feel like they're really painting that picture right now. And Teddy definitely would work with her directly as opposed to Franklin if it came to that. So let's see what happens from here. But again, something definitely is going to happen to really, I think before they get a chance to fully work together exclusively, something's going to prevent that from happening. So it's very curious to see which direction that's going to go in. But yeah, I think Teddy definitely wants to take as much away from Franklin as possible because he can't trust him. He doubts that he can work with him. And the important thing also to mention is that, as we said earlier, he asked Gustavo for help with bugging this stuff to basically spy on Franklin. We know that Gustavo has a bond with Franklin now. So I'm very curious to know if at some point he's going to tell Franklin, hey, Teddy is spying on you. You need to watch your back. I'm very curious to see if that happens because it kind of feels like it has to happen at some point now if they have this bond together. But we'll see. It can go in many different directions, so we have to wait and see, I guess.
Oh yeah, definitely. Because there was that scene that stood out in this episode where Teddy was kind of apologizing to Gustavo for leaving, like, you
Mm-hmm.
know, when he got shot, like, you know, apologizing for leaving without him. And Gustavo, he kind of didn't really say anything in response. So, you know, and we know that he kind of built a bond now with Franklin, you know, after Franklin actually came back for him, you
Mm-hmm.
know, unlike
Exactly.
unlike Teddy, you know. Well, I mean, Teddy was injured to be fair, like he was fatally wounded, but like but yeah, still, you know, he didn't allow Gustavo to escape with him, you know, or anything like that. So yeah, I think Gustavo is definitely going to kind of be more on the side of Franklin. So yeah, that it'll be interesting to see how that happens. You know, how is Gustavo going to help Franklin? Because so as you were talking, like this whole like a lot of the plot threads were kind of like swirling around in my head and thinking how things could end up. So like my theory is, I think I agree with you. I think Teddy will try to replace Franklin with Louis, Maybe he wants to replace him with Louie and Jerome, but Jerome makes it clear he doesn't want to be a part of it or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So then, maybe Teddy shows up at the wedding, and then Franklin sees him there, and then he realizes that, there's a plan in motion to kind of maybe replace him or get him out of the mix. And then, Franklin will try to do everything in it. Like, we already know he's going to throw a tantrum, and he's going to try to do everything he can to make sure that doesn't happen. And, I guess that is where the conflict comes next week. And I feel like Franklin is going to lean heavy on his uncle to help him, because Jerome he's always going to be caught in the middle because he has that responsibility as an uncle. He has blood ties to Franklin, so I think Franklin is going to go to Jerome, and he's going to be like, look, you have to help me. You're my uncle. We're family, and that now I'm not sure what will happen from there, but one theory I have is maybe Jerome tries to talk to Louie about it. And then the Buckley thing happens, maybe there's sort of fallout with that situation. Maybe Buckley tries to make a move on Kane, and Kane finds out and he retaliates. Maybe he shoots up the club or something, and maybe Jerome gets touched. Maybe Jerome, even dies, ends up dying or something. And then, that kind of makes things messy for the finale, which could go in any direction. So,
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
And I think that's a very good theory. I think that's a very, very good idea of what could happen. And the only thing I was going to say is, I kind of feel like if a major death is happening, I question if that's the reason why they haven't yet announced the show is getting renewed for a 6th season, because it probably is the last season, as everybody has said.
Mm-hmm.
But they were probably waiting to give that announcement until something really significant happens towards the end of the season. Then okay, this is the last season coming up. Because I believe it was JB did leave a very good comment on the last video, talking about a lot of the stuff that Amin Joseph, who plays Jerome, he's been doing a lot of other things outside of the show. He's been setting up a lot of other ventures that he's doing. So I think it's for him to exit the show at some point. It feels appropriate. That, or the show is ending with season 6, and everybody wants to start getting other stuff lined up that they want to do after the show. So, but very good theory I think you have as to exactly how I think this is going to play out with the next episode.
Yeah, because based on the number of episodes left, I don't think we're going to get that direct Franklin versus Teddy thing, but it's definitely leading that way still. So, so that final season will probably focus entirely on that. So, but this would be a great build up to that, I think. But we'll have to wait and see. I do think something bad could happen to Leon too, though. I'm just not sure what, but like you said, either him or Jerome. I think one of them, something is going to happen to either one of them. I'm sure. So, yeah. But was there anything else at all that you wanted to kind of touch on? One thing actually.
Yeah.
So we did see that Sissy, she was in the office with Veronique, and she kind of looked at the recorder like she wanted to plant it or something like that. So do you think that is coming? That is going to happen now?
Yeah, we do need to address this briefly. I think we can all agree that Veronique, a character, something is off about the character, and she cannot be trusted. I think the fact that she is so adamant still about closing this deal and then the transferring of the funds and all this other stuff, it's like, and then, I don't really know. Franklin really knows a lot about her backstory, doesn't really know anything about the fact that her mom is a con artist and was a con artist. I mean, I really don't know how much he knows, because again, this is a character that we just met for the first time this season. So, it would make sense if Sissy is trying to expose that situation. It makes sense, because we know that Franklin is the closest person he is and will always be Sissy. If something happens to Sissy, the Franklin that you know, that's it. Everybody is open season. Will go after anybody in that case. But I don't really get the sense in the feeling that he feels exactly the same way about Verone, because again, we haven't really seen much of this character this season. If this was a character that was introduced in earlier seasons and you saw that relationship grow over time, you obviously would like the character a lot more. You would know they don't have any ulterior motives. But because this is a new character, you have to question what exactly is their role within the show. So I definitely think that makes a lot of sense, that Sissy could be the one to eventually expose what's really going on with Veronique. That makes sense. But at the same time, I also think the exchange that she had with Franklin in this episode, you see how angry he was talking to his mom. I need you to do something. I need you to do something to help me keep the peace. That's a very interesting conversation to have. So I still think that she does doubt her son, but I still don't think she's going to be the one to rat him out. She's going to try to find a way to find a way to take out Teddy, but I don't know how that's progressed since the last time she had that conversation with Ruben and made it clear she's not going to rat out her son. So I guess we have to wait and see. But her spying on Veronique, it makes the most sense, because now that Veronique is talking the same way that Sissy talks, that means something. So we have to see where they're going with all of that.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, I could totally see that, because after that conversation Sissy and Veronique had, where she talked about her mom being a scammer or whatever, I definitely think Sissy would be she'd be a bit skeptical of that. She'd be a bit suspicious. So it makes sense that she would use that recorder to, find out something about what Veronique is up to. So maybe, she uncovers the secret behind Veronique. So yeah, that makes sense.
That makes a lot. Yeah, what you just said. Yeah, that makes sense. The explanation makes a lot more sense too.
Yeah, that's a great theory. That's a good one. But yeah, was there anything else as well in addition that you like to bring up that we kind of didn't touch on?
No, I think we touched on everything. I'm curious to see what happens with the Kane situation. We already know, as you said earlier, Franklin very delusional if he thinks this is going to end peacefully, and there's no way it's going to end peacefully, because again, Franklin decided he didn't want to be the one to talk to Kane directly. You have Leon, obviously, because of Leon's history with Kane. That's fine. But yes, this is a situation that Franklin needed to talk to Kane about directly, one-on-one. And I hope that as a viewer, we get to see the final confrontation between those two characters. I know Buckley is coming into this, but again, what we know is that Buckley has ulterior motives. So even though he would take out this target, he's still going to have another ulterior motive, whether it's he wants to eventually get with Louie, or he still wants to get somebody to bring into his boss. I mean, he has other ulterior motives at play here. So for anyone to think that they can control that character, such as Louie, she's got it wrong. He has something else that he's going to basically pull out and say, hey, now I'm also going to be doing this as well. So we'll see how that goes. But overall, a great episode. I'm very much anticipating the next episode next week to see what happens at this wedding. And overall, a great show. Once again, FX is doing an excellent job with the show. I know we had a few criticisms of some things we did not like about the episode, or some of the weaker points. But overall, I'm still very much invested in the characters, and I'm looking forward to seeing how they wrap up the season.
Oh yeah, definitely agree. And Dan, what do you say? There was something I wanted to reply to.
This is about what I just said.
Yeah, before you said about Buckley,
Louie, Jerome, Leon, Franklin.
No, I'll let it pass. But yeah, I had something amazing to say. But
oh man, now you're gonna leave people in suspense. Now they're gonna be wondering, what did he have to say?
Yeah, but there was something else because you mentioned Buckley too, and going back to the theory I said earlier, this isn't what I was going to say first, but this was also something that come from that I was thinking while you were talking,
Mhm.
because we know there's been tension between Jerome and Buckley. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Jerome and Buckley kind of get into another sort of heated exchange or something like that.
Yeah.
And then after that, Buckley goes to Kane and tells Kane that, hey, look, this Jerome guy, he's trying to set you up and have the cops come for you. And then that's what makes Kane come back and go after Jerome.
Now, what you just said right there, that is a writer basically putting together an excellent idea because it makes perfect sense, right? That could be the situation that makes everything go left.
Mhm.
Because if he goes after him and then because he finds out, oh, these are people that sit after that if he has any type of exchange with Jerome, because we already know that he and Jerome, they do not like each other. Jerome was ready to fight him in the previous episode, so that'll be very interesting. But I do believe that either way, I believe Jerome and Leon, fans of those characters, should be concerned for sure, though, because Louie and Franklin, they basically set them on a path where they may get killed, and I think it definitely can happen. I don't want to see it happen because I like both actors, but if
Mhm.
the show is coming to an end with season 6, something major has to happen. Everybody is not going to survive, and even the actor that plays Teddy, when they had an interview with him about the season, he suggested everyone might not make it out of this season. So, hey, I think it's long overdue for something to happen, a major character to get taken out. So I'm all here for it, but we'll see what happens.
Oh yeah, someone has to go, like to set up that final season.
Yeah.
Uh, someone has to go for sure. But I do remember what I was going to say now.
Okay, good.
And it was basically I agree with what you were saying, that the resolution has to be between Kane and Franklin, and I even think that Kane could secretly take it as disrespect, the fact that it was Leon that came to talk to him and not Franklin. Like, he could see that as
Oh
disrespect.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's like you're sending your flunky, your little man to come and talk to me when you're the leader of this group,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm trying to talk to you, and you're the one that did the dirt. You're the one that took out Kevin. So yeah, I think that's
That
another reason why I don't think it's resolved. But
that
go ahead.
100% makes sense. That's perfect. That makes sense because Kane is obviously a leader. They consider him an OG, so it would only make sense that he is talking directly with Franklin, since Franklin is the one that shot Kevin. It wasn't Leon. It was Franklin. So I definitely think he's going to look at it that way. Obviously, he didn't show his full hand in this episode because they only had that brief interaction between him and Leon. So we don't know what the character really thinks right now. But we know for sure next week you're going to see that storyline progress, and then you're going to get a better idea of what he really thinks about Franklin not being the one to talk to him.
Yeah. And the resolution, like you said, absolutely should be between him and Franklin. So however that story concludes, I think it has to be that, it has to be between them two.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I agree, 100%.
yeah. But yeah, that was pretty much all I had to say. Did anything else come to mind for you at all, or is that pretty much it?
Oh no, I think that's pretty much it for this episode. Just looking forward to seeing what happens next week. The celebration. We know that the episode after celebration is titled Departures. So people probably will be leaving the show in episode 9, I assume. But we'll see. We'll see about that.
Yeah, something huge is coming, and I can't wait to see what they have planned. But yeah, I think these next 2 episodes are going to be like really, really good. So,
I believe so too.
but yeah, so that is going to be it for this week on Snowfall Aftermath. And definitely do, send in your comments, your questions, and everything like that. Can't wait to read them all. And yeah, we will be back next week to recap episode 8. I can't believe like it's already going to be episode 8. Like it's gone so fast. Like,
yeah, it's crazy because again, they decided to have 2 episodes as the premiere, so that's why it feels like it went a lot faster.
yeah,
But yeah, so only 3 episodes left.
yeah, only 3 episodes left, and then I guess we gotta wait till next year maybe for that final season perhaps.
Yeah.
But yeah, this has been great so far. I know there's been a lot of talk about it, the writing being a bit different without John Singleton involved, but I still think, I mean, I do recognize that there is a change, but I still think they're doing a great job even without him. And, when you look at other shows where somebody who was involved initially, but then kind of steps away or isn't involved anymore, other shows fall off completely, but this show.
Yep. Well, I know what show you're talking about. We can't talk about that show on here, but I know exactly what show you're talking about.
Yeah. So there you go. I think the show, they've maintained a level of writing that is pretty good. So yeah, I'll say that. But yeah, that is it for now. So definitely drop your comments, and we will be back next week. Take care of yourselves, everyone. Peace.
Peace.